My friend, we are finally talking about how to break the I will get back on track cycle that keeps you repeating this I'll be good during the week and then feel a loss of control on the weekend. I am so excited for it, so let's get into it. Welcome to the Live Unrestricted podcast, a show where you'll learn how to heal your relationship with food and your body so that you can focus your time and energy on more important things like your personal growth. I'm your host, Sabrina Magna, food freedom coach, and my mission is to help make your life happier and healthier without stress, overwhelm, or guilt about food. If you love the show, please do go out and share it. And if you're looking for support with your relationship with food, details about my programs are in the show notes. Thanks for spending time with me today. Now let's jump in. Welcome back to the podcast, my friend. Oh my God, the sun is shining on my face right now. And I just got to tell you, for all of you who live in places where the winters are kind of horrible and brutal, I don't know if you're feeling the same way as I am, but I feel like my soul is finally starting to wake up again. And Luke and I say this, like, it kind of feels like we are waking up from a nightmare. And it feels like that every year when like the days are getting longer and you can feel that the sun is just stronger and brighter. And there is just the serotonin and the dopamine that I feel by being outside and just knowing that spring is around the corner. Oh my goodness, it just feels so good. And it's also a reminder of the fact that, December, January, they are really tough months and the days are much shorter and they're darker and they're really, really cold here. And I was telling Luke this, like everything feels harder to handle when you are just really low energy. Your capacity is much lower. Like I find that in the winter, my capacity for seeing people and doing things is much lower. And I tend to spend time with people who I'm really, really comfortable with and that don't require that much mental energy from me. And then as the days get longer and the weather gets nicer and my capacity increases, I just have more energy and space for things that don't feel survival based. And so if you are someone who goes through these patterns in the winter, I just want to validate that like you are so not alone in that. And yes, there are things that we can all do to take care of ourselves during those months. Like I continue going for my million walks during the day and getting my face in the sun, even if it's negative 20 degrees outside, and working out and, taking care of my health, all of those things that do help a lot and making sure that I keep seeing my friends and having a social life. But at the end of the day, there's only so much that we can do. And like, it's just about getting through it. So we are through it. And I am just so excited about that. And I'm really excited about today's podcast episode because we're talking about a pattern that a lot of you may find yourself stuck in, and you might not realize why it keeps happening and what you need to do to change it. And this pattern is when you are being good all week, right? You are like locked in. Maybe you're someone who eats the same thing most meals or for breakfast and lunch and snacks or whatever it is. Maybe you're someone who really sticks to your plan. You love structure. I am someone who also loves structure. And the best word I can use is you are locked in. Monday to Thursday or Monday to Friday, and you're doing your workouts and you're just going through the motions. And then as Friday night rolls around, and then as we go into the weekend, you might find yourself loosening the reins. And it feels like on the weekend, it's a stark difference from how you eat during the week. You might eat more than usual. You might go out to eat more. You might eat foods that you really don't eat during the week. And for some of you, it might also feel really out of control. Like you overeat, you binge eat a lot during the weekend. And when Sunday night rolls around, you just don't feel good in your body because you've overeaten. Maybe you don't move as much. Maybe you've eaten foods that just don't really work well with your body. And then it's like, all right, well, that happened. And now we are getting back into this structure. We are locking back in as I get back on Monday. And so you might notice that your lifestyle during the week is very, very different from the lifestyle that you have during the weekend. And maybe that doesn't feel great for you. Like, I know that I had this pattern for years when I was struggling with disordered eating. Like I said, I love structure. Organization, structure, routines, they work really well for me. I find that the more structure I have in my life, the more freedom I end up having. However, I would take it way too far, and it wasn't coming from a good place. It was really coming from a need to control, and it was coming from fear and anxiety. And so I remember distinctly, I have like these flashes of myself in my university house. I moved houses a lot in university. Every year I was in a different place. And there was one specific house that I lived in with 4 boys and 1 girl. They were all my friends, I would say. And my disordered eating was really, really bad that year. I definitely remember that I would not let myself bring any quote unquote junk food in the house, like pasta, cereal, chips, cookies, none of that. Like, it never even crossed my mind that I could bring those things in the house. And so what I would do is I would only bring quote unquote healthy foods in the house, and I would meal prep and I would stick to my plan. And then what would happen is when my roommates weren't home or when I had some time alone in the kitchen, I would literally, I'm like so embarrassed to admit this, but it's the truth. And I'm sure that a lot of you have experienced this too. I would go into their food. And if they had cereal, I would steal like a handful of cereal or a few chips here and there. And I wouldn't buy these foods for myself, but then I would eat theirs. And I would often eat like a handful here, a handful here, a handful here. It was just like, why aren't I just buying these foods for myself? And then what would happen, especially at the time, because I was still drinking alcohol, I don't drink anymore, just because, not for any reason other than I just doesn't feel good for me. I really don't like it. I did a full episode on why I don't drink alcohol anymore, but I was still drinking at the time. And so the combination of drinking alcohol plus the weekend, it was atomic because I had built up so much deprivation during the week. Like, I was so in control and gripping to everything so tight. And then the weekend, in my mind, it was like, oh, I can finally relax. I really associated the weekend with being able to relax all of this structure and this control that I had in place. And then you add alcohol to that, and like all of your inhibitions kind of decrease or go away. And it was like, oh, now I can really just eat whatever I want. And there's this term called drunkorexia, which kind of represents what that is, that I would really, really binge and I would feel horrible on the weekend. But at least I had this sense of relief of like, all right, well, we're getting back on track on Monday. And so I really want to talk about this pattern because sometimes we don't realize how much being stuck in this pattern is actually negatively impacting our relationship with food and interfering with your ability to just feel quote unquote normal around food, right? And that is the goal. The goal is for you to trust yourself around any food, every single thing, any previously trigger foods, any fear foods. Like there is not a single food that someone could put in front of me now and that I would be like, oh my God, I can't control myself around this food. And this is possible for you. The reason why I'm always touching into these subtle patterns and these subtle things that are going on in your mind that might be interfering with your relationship with food is because it is possible for you to get to that point. But we have to shine a light on what are some behaviors that you might be doing that are not letting you get there. So I know why we get stuck in this pattern, right? Especially when we talk about not bringing certain foods in the house or feeling the need to be really, really, really rigid and really in control. Because there might be part of you that thinks that if you were to have chips in the house, if you were to have candy in the house, if you were to have cookies in the house, then first of all, you might think that's just not who I am. Like I'm the healthy person. And that was a big part of me too. I think I kind of looked down on people who had all those foods in the house and would be like, wow, you really don't care about your health. Like, and I can admit that because obviously that's in the past and that's who I was before. But I was so down the rabbit hole of like those health influencers and like all of that wellness stuff that I saw myself as like, wow, I care so much about my health that I am just not one of those people who has those kind of snacks in the house. Like I thought that was inferior in some way. And so that was one of the reasons that I didn't have those foods, which is so silly because my family, like we grew up where we had chips in the house and we had all of those foods in the house. And my parents are some of the healthiest people I know. And when I say healthy, I'm not saying like they're almond parents by any means. They are the definition of wellness in terms of they have balance. They move their bodies for good reasons. They know when to rest. They have their chippies and their snackies while they're like watching their TV shows and movies at night. They're the cutest. They've been married, I think, for over 40 years at this point. And they travel all the time and they're retired. And they enjoy food, but they also choose to nourish their bodies because they want to have strong bodies and they want to live a long time and they want to feel healthy. And so I grew up with that. And then obviously when I fell into disordered eating, my entire mindset about what is healthy and what is good for you got warped. So I just didn't want to have those foods in the house. And I also thought that if I had those foods in the house, it was all I would eat. And I would lose control and I would binge. And I had a lot of evidence to show me that I couldn't control myself around these foods because I would binge on them. I would binge on them at parties and I would binge on them when I was around my family or any time that I was exposed to those kinds of foods because we can't avoid them, right? Like that's a big thing that I think that we tend to forget is that we can't avoid those foods forever. Let's say we use the example of cookies. That is your trigger food. You will not be able to avoid that food forever because eventually maybe you have kids, they want a cookie, or you go to a birthday party, or you go to a buffet or whatever it is. There's going to be that food eventually. And then because you haven't built up your ability to eat that food without losing control, then when you do expose yourself to that food, you're just going to repeat the pattern of binging on them. And there's another reason why a lot of you might not want to keep those foods in the house. And it's probably because part of you doesn't feel comfortable in your body, or there's a lot of fear of weight gain, right? That's a big reason why a lot of us have struggled with food. And it's related to how we feel about our bodies and wanting to control our weight and wanting to control our bodies. And so there is a part of you that might feel like, okay, well, at least when I don't have those foods in the house and when I control and I stick to my plan during the week, there's this relief, this sense of safety that comes of like, okay, I know that I am not going to gain weight and that I'm being quote unquote healthy. It can feel very regulating for your nervous system to have that structure. But the thing is that we can't maintain that structure forever. And then when your patterns of eating or your patterns of self-care or taking care of your body on the weekend are so drastically different, it doesn't compute for us that that's actually worse for us than to establish a pattern of eating that is more consistent, that is more balanced, that allows for more flexibility during the week so that the weekend is just like any other day. Like ultimately, the goal is that, yes, the weekend you might go out to eat more or you might eat different types of food, but ultimately, the goal is that the way you feel in your body feels pretty consistent throughout the entire week. Because I have all types of food at home, I have chips, I have candy, I have sweets. Whenever I want to have something, whenever I'm craving something, I'll buy it, I'll bring it home. There's no like second guessing or any drama around that. Because I have full permission and flexibility to do that, what happens is that I don't create this micro scarcity. I don't create this micro deprivation. And I say micro because it's very subtle. It's very, very subtle. Because part of you might think, I love this structure. I love this routine. I love this control throughout the week. And that may be true. But we have to get curious as to, well, why are my patterns of eating really different on the weekend? Why am I overeating on the weekend? Why do I feel like I can finally relax around food on the weekend? Because that shouldn't be happening. And I'm going to use an example that I'm still working on. But I have this mindset when it comes to work. During the week, I have a lot of routine and a lot of structure. I have a morning routine. I wake up at the same time. I do my thing. During my workday, it's very much like I'm in a work state. I don't want to be deviated away from that. I'm not one of those people who like will go to an appointment during a workday or who will run errands during a workday. Like I am very much locked in. During the work week, I try my best to socialize here and there, but it doesn't always happen. And then as the weekend comes around, like as of Friday, I feel this sense of relief because I'm like, ooh, finally I can relax. Like finally I can loosen up. And this weekend, like during the weekend, I am so relieved to not have this rigid control that I do not want to work at all. Like there's some people who have more flexibility throughout the week and there's more fluidity. And so it's like, maybe I'll work at night and maybe I'll work here and there on the weekend. And to each their own. As an entrepreneur, you can kind of work whenever you want and your schedule is yours. But I know for me, and I don't think that it's healthy. So I'm giving you the example to say like this is something I'm actively working on so that that doesn't feel so much like the week is one thing and the weekend is another. That's the thing, is like there's too much black and white. There's too much difference. And I love the weekend because I can finally relax. I can finally sleep in. I can not think about work, like I'm very fluid. And then I feel the Sunday scaries. I love my job. I love my work. Like I love it so much. And once I'm in it, I love it. But I do have the Sunday scaries because I know, all right, well, all of that relief and that flexibility and this sense of being able to relax this weekend is going away. Now you're going back to the structure and the rigidity. And so I really encourage you, number one, is to do a little audit for yourself on how you feel about food, about your structure, about your routine during the week, and then how you feel about it on the weekend. Like, what is your mindset as the weekend rolls around? Is it, I can finally relax? Is it, I can finally enjoy food, right? Because that's a big one. If there is a mindset of, oh, I can finally enjoy food, my next question for you, why aren't you enjoying it during the week? Why aren't you allowing yourself to enjoy food during the week? Last night, Luke and I do date nights on Wednesdays. This episode is coming out on a Wednesday, but I'm recording it on a Thursday. So last night, Luke and I had date night, and on date night, we will eat whatever we are craving. So last night was rotisserie chicken and frozen fries because I was really craving some fries, and then a side salad. And sometimes we're going to order food. Sometimes last week was frozen pizza. We have been roughing it with our date nights because I have been really tired after work lately. But I'm trying to highlight the fact that I enjoy my food during the week. Yes, I meal prep because that really helps me to focus on work. I don't want to like step away from work and spend 30 minutes in the kitchen at lunchtime making my lunch. Like I don't like doing that. But I bought Pringles this week because I was really craving Pringles. And so I had a couple during my snack this week. And I enjoy food during the week. And because of that, as the weekend rolls around, I don't see it as the time that I can finally enjoy food. I see it as any other day. And so if Luke is asking me on Friday night, hey, what do you want to have tonight? My first thought isn't, let's order food, let's have pizza, let's have all of these things that I've been depriving myself of, or all of these foods that are weekend only foods. Sometimes I'm like, oh, let's make a salad. Let's have a bowl. And when you remove this idea that certain foods are only weekend foods or only going out foods, when you can remove that idea, that creates choice, that creates intention. And as a result, you will notice that the thing that you're scared of, which is that you're going to gain weight and you're going to eat unhealthy all the time, the opposite is going to happen. You're going to crave nourishing foods. You are going to have the freedom to tune into your body and ask, what do I really want to have? Instead of having the urgency to think, well, now is the time to go all out and to have these foods because when Monday comes around, I'm going back to my rigid structure. So now let's talk about actionable steps and things that you can do to start moving out of this cycle so that your eating can feel more balanced, can feel more intentional. You can naturally make nourishing choices that fuel your body and enjoy food more without this all or nothing, this on track and off track. So the very first thing that you need to do before anything else is to really make the decision that you want to change this pattern. Because the thing is that if you don't really take a look at if this is serving you, if this is helping you, and if this is something that you want to continue doing, and what's going to happen is the pain of this cycle, of this pattern, will not feel great enough. It will not feel bad enough. And so if it doesn't feel bad enough, your nervous system is going to continue doing the thing that feels really safe and really comfortable, which is being really rigid and really in control during the week and then losing control on the weekend. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to get really honest with ourselves about, is this actually helping me? Is this serving me? Is this helping me to get closer to my goal, which is ultimately to feel good in your body, right? Like at the end of the day, if we're stripping everything down, the goal is to feel good in your body. And as someone who has done both, who has done the good during the week, off track during the weekend, and who now just has consistency, flexibility, and balance, I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt that there is only one of those patterns that have felt good for my body, and it's how I live now. And a really good question to ask yourself is, okay, let's say 10 years from now, I am the person who has a really healthy relationship with food. Like I am one of those people who other people look at and think, wow, she is so just normal and at peace around food. That's the goal, right? So you have to look at yourself 10 years from now, and that's who you are. And you no longer struggle with binging and overeating. Like all of that is in the past. Maybe you've even started your own podcast and you are helping other people do that very same thing. So you have to look at starting with the end in mind, which is that, and then asking yourself, that person who has overcome disordered eating, who no longer struggles with food, is she still stuck in this pattern? Is she still being good and rigid and not allowing herself to enjoy food during the week and then overdoing it and losing control on the weekend? Is that something that she is doing? And you will likely see that the answer is no. And so if that version of you who has food freedom is not doing that, then we got to start working on undoing this pattern now, right? So once you've created safety in your body and you've made the decision and you've recognized this is not serving me like I thought that it was, the next thing is to get really curious as to why this pattern keeps happening. So everyone's going to be different. This is why it is so important to know your root causes and to be able to dig deep and ask the right questions and shine a light on your blind spots, because everyone's going to be really different. Everyone's going to have different reasons, different patterns. So get curious as to why this keeps happening for you. Is it that you are not allowing yourself to enjoy food enough during the week? Is it that it can be something as simple as you don't have fun foods at home? You don't allow yourself to have chips or candy or a cookie or whatever those things that you might not think that you want. But once you start having that at home, you realize like, oh, this is actually really fun to have. Like before Luke and I started dating, I didn't have that many snacks at home because truly I didn't think that I needed them. I didn't really think that I wanted them. And it wasn't coming from a disordered place. I just like didn't really have them. And he would come over at first and he was like, he's a big guy, right? So he'd be like, where are your snacks? You have no snacks. So I progressively started buying more snacks for him. And then obviously we moved in together. And so now we just have snacks at home all the time. And this week specifically, we went through a couple of days where our snack game was so poor. Like we didn't have our typical things that we usually have, like our goldfish crackers, which I love so much, or any chips or any candy. Like we had none of that. And it was the absence of it that made me think, how did I live without snacks at home for so long? Like I don't eat a lot, but I'll have a small bowl here and there. And that just feels really satisfying for me. And satisfaction is so important in your relationship with food and your eating experience. So get clear on why. And it could be something else. It could be that you're a mom and during the week you are like really mom mode and you have no time for yourself. It's always about your kids. It's always about your family. And then when the weekend rolls around, maybe it's a time where you finally get to slow down and you get to have me time. And then your me time is associated with eating. Maybe that's your way of winding down. So those are just some examples of what might be going on for you. So the second thing that you really want to do is get curious as to why. And if you're not sure, if you have no idea, if you don't know what questions to ask yourself, if this is really deep rooted, that can be where having support, having strategy, and having someone to help you through it, help you identify your blind spots can be really helpful. And that's what we do inside of Food Freedom Academy. But the second piece is you really got to get curious as to why. And then once you know why, the third thing that you get to start doing is to address how you can make small changes so that the week feels less rigid or feels less like you have no time for yourself or feels less like you can enjoy food. So maybe that will be that you progressively start bringing snacks in your house. Now, I know for a lot of you, this could be a whole other episode. For a lot of you, that can be really scary. And you might be afraid that if you bring in the house, you're going to binge and you're going to lose control. And I really get that. Inside of FFA, we have a full training on how to bring back previously trigger foods in the house. But it's really important that you do start doing that, because when you don't, you keep the fear of those foods alive. I'll give you an example. A couple of months ago, Luke and I were at the grocery store and he's been working on his relationship with food. And so as a result, he's been sharing like what his internal thoughts are when something is coming up. And then I help him through it. So we were at the grocery store and he goes, okay, I'm noticing that I would really like to bring carrot cake home because that's his favorite dessert. But then another voice is saying, if you bring the carrot cake home, you're going to eat the whole thing. And so you better just not buy it at all. And then he asked me, what do you think that I should do? And what I explained to him is that every time that you avoid the food, you're doing two things. Number one is you are reinforcing the belief that you can't be trusted around that food. And the second thing that you're doing is you're missing out on an opportunity to change your experience with that food. Because as long as you avoid it, you are missing out on the chance to build evidence that you can eat that food without binging and without losing control. So what I said to him is I said, okay, well, do you really want it? And he said, yeah, I really do. I said, okay, great. So let's buy it and let's use this as an experiment and show your nervous system, show yourself that you can have this food in the house. You can eat it in a way that feels good without overeating. And then by building up that evidence, every time that you are craving that cake or you go to eat that cake and you eat it in a way that feels good, you are building up your trust around it. So he brought it home. And then I kind of coached him through a couple of things to do and to focus on so that he could eat it in a way that didn't feel very bingey and that didn't feel out of control. And what do you know? He had one piece and he enjoyed it. And after that one piece, he felt satisfied. He had enough and he put the rest in the fridge. And that cake ended up staying in our fridge for over a week. And so what do you think that did for him? That created safety. That reinforced a new belief, a new way of thinking, which is, wow, I actually can trust myself around carrot cake. It's not true that every time I eat it, I lose control. And so now, whenever he's craving carrot cake, he doesn't feel scared. He doesn't feel like he's going to lose control. And let's say we're at a family get together and my mom makes carrot cake. He can have a piece and be satisfied with it. And so that is the importance of gradually building up your safety, your capacity, and your belief that you can be trusted around these foods. So what I'm actually going to do, if you're noticing, okay, I really don't allow myself to enjoy food enough, or I'm really too rigid during the week, I want you to go into my show notes and I'm going to link a free resource for you that's going to take you step by step on how to reintroduce previously triggered foods into your life. I wish I could tell you what the URL link is, but I truly don't remember. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in the show notes for you. Go grab that. And the last thing I'll say on this, if you're still feeling resistance to breaking this cycle, or there is still part of you that feels like it's helping or that it's keeping you safe in some way, shape, or form, I will say that when you can create more consistency and flexibility in your week, and there isn't this black and white or like this really clear divide, food will feel more neutral. Food won't have the same emotional charge attached to it, because right now it might feel like food makes you have a sense of excitement or joy or something to look forward to. And I'm not saying that you're not going to enjoy food once you have a healthy relationship with food. I still really love food, but it doesn't create this sense of like, oh my God, I can't wait for Saturday to go out to eat. What I think now is I can't wait for Saturday because I have a girls' night and I can't wait to see my girls. And this is all true. I have a girls' night on Saturday and I love girls' night. So the really central thing that I'm excited about is seeing my friends and having a good time. And then like as a little side, it's like, oh yeah, and then we're going to go out to eat and it's going to be fun. I like the restaurant that we're going to. But it's not the main event. It's not the central focus. And when food is not the central focus of your life, that is how you naturally make healthier choices. And you naturally start to make decisions from a place of self-love and from self-respect instead of from a place of urgency. We had one of our new Food Freedom Academy members who joined, I think she joined less than a month ago. And she posted one of her wins in our Facebook group and said that she had 3 birthday parties, kids' birthday parties in the past week. And for the first time, Food was a part of it, but it wasn't something that was the central focus. It did not consume her mind, and she didn't walk away feeling overly stuffed and uncomfortable. And she said that was new and really great. So I hope you're seeing the power of doing this work. So to recap the 3 things that you want to do when you walk away from this episode. Well, actually, there's 4 now. So number 1 is to get really clear on how this pattern is not serving you, because we have to show our nervous system like something needs to change, and it needs to change now. We need to take action on this. The second is to get curious as to why this pattern keeps happening and uncover your specific root causes. And there might be more than one. There might be more than one thing going on. The third is to progressively start making changes to address those root causes. So I use the example of having more joy, eating more of those foods progressively, right? Like this is another important piece. We're not going to the grocery store and buying all of your previously trigger foods and bringing them into the house. So very progressively, if you need to have more time for yourself, more me time, then that could be something you implement during the week. So that's the third. And then the last one is go into the show notes and find the resource where I walk you through step by step on how to progressively bring previously fear foods, trigger foods into your life without losing control, so that you can have the same experience that Luke has, and you can build up that self-trust that you can have that food and not binge on it. And it's by neutralizing that food that you're not going to be scared of it. You're going to be able to have it when you want, but as a result, you're not going to want it as often, and you're going to feel more normal around food. So you've got a few pieces of homework to do. And this is just one of the many patterns that we work through and that we help you overcome inside of Food Freedom Academy, so that you can become that person who is just like at peace and relaxed and eats and moves on and doesn't make a big deal around it. So if you want to learn more about how you can join us inside of Food Freedom Academy, you can either send me a DM at Sabrina Magnan Health on Instagram. I'm always in there answering my DMs. Or you can go to sabrinamagnan.com/FFA. And then that link is also in the show notes. All right, my friend, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And I love you. I'll see you on the next episode. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you found it valuable, I would love if you would share it with someone you know that could benefit. If you're loving the show, don't forget to subscribe over on Apple Podcasts so you don't miss a single episode. I really love hearing feedback from you, so please leave a rating and review over on Apple to help us get in the ears of more people who need it the most. Finally, come hang out with me on Instagram at Sabrina Magnan Health for more educational content and get up close and personal with me. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you on the next episode.